Prince Harry, a man who would have been expected before his move stateside to be one of the faces of the FIFA World Cup being held in the United States of America, has been shut out. And we're hearing it's in large part because of his personal feud with footballing legend David Beckham.
Harry has reportedly been shut out of the FIFA World Cup, and not just left off a guest list by chance. Reports point to a specific reason tied to one major name, David Beckham. There's a big difference between being uninvited and being shut out. One suggests a simple omission, while the other hints that a person's presence is no longer seen as a benefit because of who else is involved. That's the picture emerging from recent reports surrounding Harry and the World Cup final. What makes this story stand out isn't the snub itself. High-profile events turn people away all the time. The bigger issue is what it may reveal about Harry's changing public and business standing over the last 5 years, and how major global events now view his influence. Tonight, we're breaking down the World Cup story, the dramatic shift in the Beckham-Sussex relationship since the 2018 wedding, and the reported incident that may have changed everything. The Bench, the children's book that was meant to establish Meghan as an author, has reached its 5-year anniversary. That milestone has sparked fresh discussion about what the book's commercial performance may have revealed at the time, and whether it hinted at challenges that would later become much more visible.
Meghan Markle.
Yes, my favorite.
A force for good, or...
Well, I think a force for a perpetual embarrassment. Perpetual.
Are you happy to have her back in the United States?
We are not. We'd love to do a trade.
Let's start with the World Cup story, because the reports are detailed, and those details matter. The FIFA World Cup is being held in the United States, where Harry lives. Based on his profile a few years ago, many would have expected him to be connected to an event of this size. He had global name recognition, strong celebrity ties, and a history of attending major international sporting events alongside well-known public figures. Not long ago, the assumption might have been that Harry would be right in the middle of the action. Front-row appearances, media attention, and high-profile moments often followed him. But recent reports suggest that is no longer the case. According to Rob Shooter's reporting, David Beckham is expected to be one of the biggest names at the World Cup final. Sources reportedly describe Harry's absence not as a simple guest list issue, but as a reflection of who organizers believe adds value to the event. One quote from the reporting stands out. "Football picked its prince years ago, and that prince is David Beckham." The significance goes beyond a personal disagreement. It points to a broader judgment about influence, status, and whose presence is viewed as an asset on one of the world's biggest stages. These kinds of judgments, once made by a major international event, usually stick around for a long time. They are often based on broader public perception, what a person represents, how their presence is viewed, and what impact they have on the event itself. That's why the World Cup story matters. It's less about a broken friendship and more about what it may say regarding Harry's public trajectory over the years. According to the reporting, the relationship between Harry and David Beckham had already fallen apart long before any World Cup decisions were made. Sources claim the current situation is tied to a dispute from years ago that was never resolved, rather than anything happening in the present. Reports point to allegations that David and Victoria Beckham were suspected of sharing information with the British press. The claim reportedly caused serious damage to the friendship. Sources say trust was broken, and from that point forward, the relationship never recovered. The reported dispute is especially noteworthy because it fits into a larger conversation about how negative media coverage has often been explained around the Sussexes. Critics have argued that attention has sometimes been directed toward identifying specific people or institutions believed to be behind unfavorable stories. At the time these events were unfolding, Harry and Meghan were among the most talked about public figures in the world. Media coverage was coming from many different places at once, creating a constant stream of headlines and speculation. Reports, commentary, and stories were emerging from multiple directions. Coverage involved royal sources, people connected to different stages of their lives, media insiders, commentators, and sources described as close to the couple. With so many voices contributing information and opinions, the public narrative became increasingly complex and difficult to trace back to any single source. The idea that such a massive amount of media coverage was being controlled by one specific celebrity couple has been questioned by many observers. Given the scale of attention surrounding Harry and Meghan at the time, critics argue that the situation was far more complicated than any single source influencing the narrative. Before the reported dispute, the Beckhams were seen as friends of the Sussexes. They attended the wedding, shared social connections, and moved within many of the same celebrity and cultural circles. Their relationship appeared friendly and well established.
Prince Harry has not been invited to the FIFA World Cup final. And insiders tell Naughty But Nice the reason is simple: David Beckham. The soccer icon is expected to be one of the biggest stars at the event, while Harry won't be there at all.
According to reports, the allegations placed David and Victoria Beckham at the center of a controversy they had no clear reason to be involved in. Sources claim David was especially upset because he believed he had been blamed for something he strongly denied. One reported incident has received particular attention over the years. Sources say David traveled to Australia, hoping to maintain the friendship and speak with Harry directly during a busy period filled with public appearances and major events. However, reports claim the meeting never happened. David allegedly made the long journey, but was unable to have the conversation he had hoped for before returning home. According to those accounts, the missed opportunity became a major turning point in the relationship. Sources suggest that the combination of the allegations and the failed meeting had a lasting impact. They argue that while disagreements can sometimes be worked through, the absence of a direct conversation made reconciliation far more difficult. In that interpretation, the issue went beyond the original accusation. The reported no-show was viewed as a signal that repairing the friendship was not being treated as a priority. For some observers, that moment became the final chapter in a relationship that had already been under serious strain. Since then, the Beckhams have appeared to grow closer to William and Catherine in a way that has been highly visible and widely reported. David Beckham has publicly supported several of William's charitable and sporting efforts, while Catherine has frequently worn Victoria Beckham designs at major public events. That connection has created valuable publicity for Victoria's fashion brand and reinforced the perception of a strong relationship between the Beckhams and the Wileses. As that bond became more public, many observers noticed a clear contrast with the Sussexes, whose relationship with the Beckhams was reportedly moving in the opposite direction. Recent World Cup reporting has added another layer to that story. Beckham is expected to be closely linked with one of the world's biggest sporting events, while Harry's absence has become part of the conversation surrounding changing public influence and relationships. Now let's turn to the bench, because this week marked the 5-year anniversary of Meghan's children's book. The milestone has renewed debate about what the book's performance may have revealed about the Sussexes' commercial prospects at the time. The bench was released on the 8th of June 2021, during a period that many would have considered favorable for a high-profile book launch. Pandemic restrictions were easing, consumer spending was recovering, and book sales remained strong in many markets. At the same time, Meghan was receiving enormous global attention following her March 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey. The interview dominated headlines and placed Harry and Meghan at the center of one of the most discussed public stories of the year. The project also had the backing of Penguin Random House, one of the largest publishing companies in the world. Reports noted a major multi-book agreement involving Harry and Meghan, creating expectations that future releases would attract significant interest. According to published sales figures, The Bench sold 3,212 copies during its first week in the United Kingdom and did not enter the UK official Top 50 chart. Those numbers quickly became a topic of discussion among commentators and industry watchers. For critics, the results stood out because the book launched during a period of extraordinary public visibility. Meghan's name was generating headlines across international media. Major publishers were promoting the project, and public curiosity surrounding the Sussexes was exceptionally high. As a result, some analysts viewed the sales performance as an early sign that media attention and commercial demand do not always move together. The book remained heavily discussed, but its sales figures sparked questions about how effectively public interest could be converted into long-term consumer support. At the time of its release, The Bench seemed positioned to attract major attention. With the level of publicity surrounding Meghan, many expected the book to become a standout success. Yet critics argued that public awareness did not translate into the level of sales some had predicted. The book was presented as a story about the bond between a father and son, told from a mother's perspective. That theme immediately sparked discussion because of Meghan's well-known and highly publicized estrangement from her father, Thomas Markle. For years, the father-daughter relationship had been covered extensively by the media. Their separation, public comments, and ongoing family tensions became familiar topics in celebrity and royal reporting. Because of that background, some commentators felt the book's message and Meghan's public family situation created an awkward contrast. Whether fair or not, many readers were already aware of that family story before picking up the book. As a result, discussion about the author often became part of the conversation surrounding the book itself. 5 years later, however, the larger story may be less about the book's opening sales and more about the broader publishing deal behind it. The agreement with Penguin Random House reportedly covered 4 books connected to Harry and Meghan. So far, 2 major titles have emerged from that arrangement. The Bench was one, while Harry's memoir, Spare, became the other.
The snub carries extra sting because Harry and Meghan Markle were once close friends with David and Victoria Beckham. That relationship unravelled after the Sussexes allegedly accused the Beckhams of leaking stories to the British press. David never forgave it, says the source. The accusation destroyed the trust. Once that happened, there was no coming back.
Unlike The Bench, Spare achieved enormous commercial success. The memoir attracted worldwide attention through its first-hand account of royal life, family tensions, and highly publicized disagreements. Millions of copies were sold, making it one of the most talked-about books of its era. That success helped demonstrate where the strongest commercial interest appeared to be. Readers showed significant demand for personal stories, behind-the-scenes revelations, and Harry's perspective on events that had already dominated headlines for years. According to recent reporting, questions remain about the 2 books that were originally expected to complete the deal. No publication dates, titles, or confirmed release plans have been publicly announced. Some commentators have pointed to that lack of progress as evidence that the partnership may no longer be moving at the pace once expected. Reports have also noted that several major media and business relationships connected to the Sussexes have evolved significantly since the original agreement was announced. Over the years, there have been several reports about potential Sussex book projects that never officially appeared. These included claims of a joint Harry and Meghan wellness book, as well as reports that Meghan was working on a memoir of her own. One report drew particular attention because it described a manuscript allegedly being developed for a possible future scenario involving a Sussex separation. The claims were never presented as proof that such an event would occur, but the idea sparked significant discussion about long-term planning and publishing strategy. From a business perspective, Some analysts viewed the reported manuscript as an example of preparing content around major life events that could generate public interest. Whether or not the project was ever seriously pursued, the report raised questions about how future stories might fit into broader commercial plans. More broadly, the discussion highlights a larger point about the Sussex brand over the past several years. Many of the biggest deals, including agreements with Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House, were announced during a period when global interest in Harry and Meghan was at an extraordinary level. At the time, the central story was clear and highly marketable. A royal couple had stepped away from one of the world's most famous institutions and was prepared to share its perspective through books, documentaries, interviews, and other media projects. That story generated enormous attention and helped justify major investments from media companies. Public curiosity was intense, and audiences around the world wanted more information about the royal split and its aftermath. However, media stories often have a limited period of peak interest. The strongest audience demand usually exists at the beginning, when events are new and details are still emerging. Some commentators point to viewing figures as evidence of that shift. Reports noted that the 2022 Netflix documentary, centered on royal tensions, generated massive engagement during its launch period. By contrast, a later lifestyle-focused series reportedly attracted far lower viewership, leading analysts to argue that audiences were more interested in the royal story than in content unrelated to that central narrative. The key difference was never the platform or the publicity, it was the story itself. One project centered on a major royal controversy that captured worldwide attention, while another focused on a lifestyle and personal interest topic that generated far less public excitement. Some analysts argue that public interest was driven primarily by the royal storyline rather than by the personalities involved alone. As time passed and the events became less immediate, the level of attention naturally began to change. In that view, the bench became an early test of whether interest connected to a major news story could successfully carry over into a completely different type of project. The book focused on themes that stood apart from royal issues, and critics argue that audiences responded differently as a result. The broader lesson, according to some commentators, is that attention tied to a specific event does not always transfer to unrelated ventures. Once the original story becomes less central in the public conversation, new projects often have to succeed based on their own appeal, rather than past headlines. Over the last 5 years, that theory has been debated across multiple business ventures and media partnerships. Observers have pointed to developments involving publishing, streaming, podcasting, and consumer brands as examples of changing audience engagement over time. Reports have highlighted several shifts, including the end of the Spotify partnership, changes involving Netflix, questions surrounding unpublished books from the Penguin Random House deal, and discussions about traffic trends connected to Meghan's lifestyle brand. Critics argue that these developments reflect a common pattern. According to that interpretation, many early agreements were signed during a period of intense public fascination with the Sussexes' departure from royal life. As the years passed and that story became less immediate, maintaining the same level of commercial momentum became more challenging. The first-week sales figures for the bench continue to be cited in those discussions. While the book itself was only one project, some analysts now view it as an early signal of larger questions about long-term audience demand. At the time, however, those concerns received far less attention because major deals were still being announced, and the Sussex story remained one of the biggest topics in global media.
David Beckham went all the way to Australia, and Harry said that he'd got no time to see him, he doesn't want to see him, he's too busy. So there was Harry sort of getting ready to be with a football match, a very important one, and he was left very rudely for David Beckham. And I think, he is the king of football and all the rest of it.
Looking back 5 years later, some commentators argue that the early signs were already there, even if few people recognized them at the time. But before wrapping up, another story from this week offers an interesting contrast and highlights a different kind of lasting public fascination. Letters and cards exchanged between Princess Diana and British actor Terence Stamp have gone to auction. The correspondence dates back to 1991 and reveals a warm, relaxed friendship that had far beyond public appearances. The messages include everyday conversations, lunch plans, thank you notes, and lighthearted humor. In one letter, Diana jokingly mentioned Prozac, writing, "3 cheers for Prozac, not the American variety," I hasten to add. The remark reflected the playful tone that appears throughout much of the correspondence. Several postcards also showcased Diana's sense of humor. One featured the phrase, "all the breast from London," while another included a joke hidden inside the card. The collection offers a glimpse of a side of Diana that the public rarely saw during official engagements. What stands out most is how comfortable and genuine she appears in these private exchanges. The letters show someone joking with a trusted friend, expressing gratitude, sharing laughs, and speaking freely without the pressures that came with constant public attention. Unlike many royal stories that focus on controversy or behind-the-scenes revelations, these letters contain no major secrets or dramatic disclosures. Instead, they capture ordinary moments and personal warmth. That may be one reason they continue to attract interest decades later. Rather than drawing attention through scandal, the correspondence offers something many people find just as compelling: a candid look at a well-known figure simply being herself around someone she trusted completely. What makes these letters so fascinating today isn't just what Diana wrote, it's what Terence Stamp chose not to do with them. He kept the letters for more than 30 years, through Diana's tragic death, through countless documentaries, biographies, media specials, and the enormous global demand for anything connected to her legacy. Despite having material that many people would have paid a fortune to see, he never sold the letters, never leaked their contents, and never used them to gain publicity. He didn't give interviews revealing private conversations or claim special insight into Diana's personal life. Instead, he simply protected what had been shared with him. That detail matters because the eventual decision to auction the letters came from his estate after his death, not from Stamp himself during his lifetime. For decades, he treated the correspondence as something personal rather than something to be monetized. Many people came in and out of Diana's life, but the friends she trusted most were often those who understood the value of discretion. They recognized that being close to a famous person did not automatically create an opportunity for profit or public attention. Stamp appears to have followed that principle consistently for 3 decades. Through every wave of public interest in Diana, he kept those private moments exactly that private. The letters survived untouched because he viewed the friendship as something worth protecting. That approach highlights 2 very different ways of viewing trust. One sees private relationships as something to safeguard, while the other sees personal stories as material that can be turned into public content. The difference is hard to ignore. Viewed alongside the Beckham story and the broader discussions surrounding the Sussexes' business ventures, it raises some interesting questions. How were friendships valued when disagreements emerged? Did certain relationships become collateral damage during larger public battles? And what role did those choices play in shaping public perception over time? The 5-year anniversary of the bench, the World Cup reports, and the ongoing debate about post-royal commercial strategy have all brought those questions back into focus. Were the challenges the result of execution, concept, changing audience interests, or a combination of all 3? Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think the Beckham fallout really says about loyalty and trust? Has your view of the Sussexes' post-royal strategy changed over the last 5 years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please like, subscribe, and share the video. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one as the story continues to unfold.